Hello and welcome to the Hoard, a podcast of all the gold gems and trinkets a dragon desires. I'm Cody Hunt, and today I'm with
Mr. Boyer.
So last week on Friday, we went to MOMES, which stands for Missouri Music Education Symposium. It was basically just our concert band and our symphonic band. We went, we performed, and then we got a clinic by some other directors. Okay, so I have a few questions for you. To start off, would you consider this one of the biggest highlights of our band program?
Yeah, throughout the year, it's a fantastic resource for our program. You mentioned we got clinics from a couple directors. One of them was composer and educator Gary Gaxeter. He's been all over the country performing and writing music for bands all across the country. The other was Don Miller. He's actually known for he wrote a book, or he was in one of the books for his knowledge of rehearsing the band. It's called Rehearsing the Band. And so we got clinics from both of those guys to help us prepare for future performances.
I didn't even really know all that, so that's really cool to hear. My other question is, so why exactly do we do MOMES instead of like a state band competition sort of thing?
It's more for the value for our program. So with our the state evaluative festival, they don't provide that clinic aspect. And for me, I want my students focused on preparing for the future and improving after every performance.
Yeah.
So we used to go to the state band evaluative festival, and we'd go into a classroom, and we'd get our rating or whatever. But there's no human aspect. There was no working with the kids.
Gotcha.
It was, here's your rating based off of that one snapshot. You were in the band, and so you kind of got to work with Gary. You got that immediate feedback from him on our performance and what we can do to improve future performances.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite things about MOMES is the fact that it's always like they come in, and then the one thing they always say is you can always do better. Even after your best performance, you can always go more and more.
And I think it's important that our students are hearing that, because again, like in the past, when we did the state festival, I'd read the comments off the sheet, and it kind of rings hollow sometimes. Like, hey, the judge said, great job in that one measure, but it's a lot different when you hear from a composer, or we have always played a piece by Gary Gaxeter, and so it's cool for our students to be able to make that connection with a quality judge, somebody that is doing fantastic work in the music sphere, that you guys can relate to, but also that you're getting that immediate feedback from.
Yeah. Okay, so my other question is, so what is it like to have and see other directors working with your students?
It's one of my favorite things. It's kind of like a cheat code. Yeah. Because everybody thinks just slightly differently. I think it's super cool to be able to watch and listen to other directors work with my band, and maybe say things in a different way that I haven't thought about.
Yeah.
Again, I think of it all kind of like a video game. It's like hearing all the answers in a different format.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, the way I may say something may not click with the student, but, having those additional inputs is helpful.
Yeah. So keeping on that track, so do you see a change in how your students perform after MOMES?
Absolutely. Again, getting that immediate feedback. And then, throughout the year, I try to change some things. Hey, can we try this in this piece of music? After MOMES, they're always like, oh, we can do that. Like, oh, we can do that. Like the clinician just showed us that, and we can do this, we can do that, and then it's always like, it's almost like the light clicks on, and they're engaged, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And have you as a director ever changed after witnessing a clinic?
Yeah, all the time. Again, it's all about picking up as many new tricks and tips that I can, so I can be the best teacher.
So I feel like what you're saying is the big thing with MOMES is the clinics themselves, because it's always it's like a hands-on sort of experience too, because they're in front of you and they're directing at us, and then they're changing things and everything like that, and it really does click at least because I'm a student in band, it clicks in my brain like, oh, we can't always like change music to fit our needs better and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So my thing with all of like MOMES and you know, the Evaluative Festival, there was a reason that they always called the Evaluative Festival contest.
Yeah.
And to me, music's not a contest. You know, you're not getting a trophy for, you know, most notes played or something. You know, it's about MOMES is really about the music education part, not just yours, but mine too. You know, how can you improve your performance, but how can I improve as a music educator?
Okay, and then I have sort of just like a your thought process question. What goes through your brain while you're selecting music for us to play at MOMES?
Well, it's what goes through my brain when I'm selecting music at all. Like what, so a few things. What do my students need to work on?
Yeah.
What are they struggling with? What piece of music can I program that will help me teach this concept? And then, you know, as we're getting closer to MOMES, because we read a lot of music, you know, for various reasons, what pieces are going to highlight your guys' strengths?
Yeah.
You know, so as we're getting closer to the concert or MOMES or whatever, I'm looking at, you know, of all the pieces that we've used to, you know, teach this concept or that concept, which ones have we, you know, which ones are going to be the best to showcase you guys and what you've learned and how you've grown over the year?
Yeah. And then my last question is, if your students are listening to this, what is one thing that you hope they all feel coming off that stage after performance?
I hope they feel proud of the work that they did. Like I tell all my students, like, you're going to make a mistake. You know, no matter your first concert or your last concert, there's always going to be something that you could improve. That's the great thing about music, because, you know, you can practice and get better and better, but there's always a next step.
Yeah.
There's always more that you could do, something that you can improve upon. So just understanding that every performance will have its flaws, but be proud of the work that you've done to get to where you are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's all the questions I had. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah,
thank you all for listening to us on The Hoard. The Hoard is a podcast developed by the DeSoto Broadcasting Company and distributed by the DeSoto High School. I'm Cody, and I'm signing off.